When do you turn this on? When do you turn this on?
Bill, do I have 2 minutes?
1 minute. 1 minute.
Anybody do anything around here? Check, check, check. Hey, everybody, we're ready to get started here. So if you can get to your seats and give me your undivided attention, that would be greatly appreciated so we can get the program rolling. We apologize up front for the delay in the start. We wanted to make sure food was served, desserts were served, etc. We will let you know right now that we are live on YouTube. So this program will be archived as well. So for those folks that maybe weren't able to be in attendance, they can go out. The link will be on our Facebook page and provided that way. And so you can go out and search and check it out. So with that being said, I want to say good evening to everyone. My name is Bill Adams, and I proudly serve as the superintendent of the Janesville-Waldorf-Pemberton Public School District. I'm honored to welcome each and every one of you here this evening. Before we get started, I'd like to say thank you or recognize those behind the scenes for making this possible. Ryan Lidke, Dee Malter, Mike Nimchek, Dale Owen, Marla Westfall, and Jean Webush. Without their support and expertise, none of this would be possible. Your commitment to this work is greatly appreciated. So last year we held our inaugural Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And let me tell you, it was a blast. And you are in for a treat tonight. I think you'll find it a very enjoyable experience. I would like to personally thank each and every one of you being inducted tonight for laying the groundwork for our current students. Your accomplishments are forever etched in stone as a cornerstone for success. You have laid the foundation to build upon. You have certainly set the bar high in which our students aspire to reach. Be proud of yourselves as we are of you. All right. There's something very, very special about small communities, and that we come together as family in many different ways. Tonight represents a key characteristic of small communities, and that is pride. It is wonderful to be part of this event tonight. With that being said, I will now turn it over to Ryan Lidke, current Activities Director for the Janesville-Waldorf-Pemberton Public School District, to begin the induction ceremony. Congratulations to all of you.
Before we begin, I would like to bring the ladies from the Goose out so we can give them a round of applause. They are coming. Holly's going to lead the way. And there was a lot of, obviously, planning that goes into this. And Judy, who owns the Purple Goose, had great communication the whole way through this to have this event, make this event possible. So thank you very much. Maybe she doesn't want to be recognized, but it's... Thank you very, very much, ladies. It's super appreciated. Thank you again. All right, so now for our first team, and what I like the most, I think, about athletics and activities is what directors and coaches can do for individuals. And last night I had the pleasure of meeting two teams, the wrestling team and the girls basketball team from back in the day. And they still refer to their coaches as coaches or Mr. Nimchek or Mr. Weebush. And that to me says what an impact that a coach or a director can have on a person's life. And first up, we're going to go with the 1982-83 Janesville Girls basketball team.
Thank you, Ryan. I am, use the mic. I usually have a loud voice. Thank you, Ryan. Everybody hear that this time? Okay. I am going to speak for just a few seconds because the Deers runs over by an hour, I think she said, or 5 seconds. This team is a great team, and I have fond memories of them. They had more dedication than most players that I have worked with, and I've worked with some very good ones, including football, basketball, and baseball. And that's all I have to say, except thank you, girls, for taking me to the state tournament. And at this time, I would like to introduce Mrs. Adair Ballavance. You're all by yourself.
Okay.
You want me to hold your hand?
No. Thank you.
Thank you also to the Hall of Fame Committee for selecting the 1983 Girls Basketball State Tournament team to be included in the Hall of Fame. It is a great honor and quite humbling to be inducted with the other inductees. There are 4 words that come to mind when looking at this basketball team, and no, it is not, wow, they look older. You do know it was over 35 years ago. The words are actually dedication, determination, team, and support. Dedication. Defined, it is the quality of being dedicated or committed to a task or purpose. This team was dedicated to working hard, working together, doing what was asked of us from an amazing coaching staff, and dedicated to winning. Most teams start out the year with the state tournament in mind, and for many of those teams, it is not realistic. However, that is always the goal. For the 1983 team, it was a realistic goal, and all involved, coaches, players, managers, and fans knew this. So being dedicated to that goal was not difficult. This team also had to be dedicated to one another. That meant getting along on the court when maybe you didn't want to. It meant going to practice when perhaps you didn't feel well, but not to would let the others down. Dedicated meant being home when Coach Wiebush called to spot check players for a curfew. I could never be late. Dedicated meant giving as much as you could every day at practice because you kept the goal of the state tournament in mind. Determination. The term defined means firmness of purpose or resoluteness. The girls' basketball has changed so much in 35 years. One of the changes is the class system. In 1983, there were 2 classes, A and AA. Today, there are 4 classes and more teams playing in that state tournament. So with only 2 classes, it took determination to reach the goal we set at the beginning of the year. Determination was knowing that at some point in practice, the whistle was going to blow and we would hear the words, "on the line." For those of you that may not know what that means, those words equal pain. They're killers. But we could not see it that way. We had to see it from the point of determination. So we saw it as a way to be conditioned and thus able to win. We had to be in better shape at the end of the game than any other team, and we were. Determination was doing fundamentals at our morning practice before we got on the bus to go to the cities for the tournament, and I'm pretty sure we did killers that morning too. Determination meant working as hard as we could every game and being ready to play our roles as needed. Determination came into playing when we were playing Wheaton in our first game and we were behind. Dad called a timeout and told us if we lost the game, we had to play super early in the morning. Who wants to do that? Team. A group of players forming one side in a competitive game or sport. Also to come together as a team to achieve a common goal. Can you achieve much in life without the support of others? We were a group of players forming a side in a competitive sport. We were also a group that came together to achieve a common goal. How did we do that? We went to practice every day and worked hard. We would push each other to do the best we could at all times. We would laugh together, cry together. We would drop our differences at the gym doors. We would celebrate the happy times. High school sports is a great place to learn life skills. You learn to win and lose with grace. You learn to get along with others. You learn to work with people. You learn to work toward a goal. Support. Hold up. You probably know the saying, the last one out of town, please shut off the lights. Of course, we would have played to an empty gym. And it was amazing to have the support of the whole town for most of our games in 1982-83. People came to our games and cheered. People encouraged us when we were down at Whistie's shopping. Life is great in a small town with so many people supporting the high school teams. Could we have done what we did without the support? Probably, but it sure helped to have crowds of parents, families, friends, and the city. So, even after 35 years, thank you for all the support and obviously still giving us that support. We have grown up in 35 plus years. We are business owners, flight attendants, workers in the medical field, accountants, social workers, HR workers, financial coordinators, teachers, and even varsity girls basketball coaches. The Minnesota State High School League has a mission statement about what student athletes should learn while participating in high school sports, and it hopes it carries over to life. Basketball helped to mold and shape us, make ethical decisions in our lives, understand that the team comes before the individual, collaboration, and much more long after the 1983 state tournament where we worked hard together and won the third place trophy. Thank you for selecting us for this honor. We will continue to live our lives with dedication, determination, support, and team. Thank you. Larry. No. I'm going to now introduce the members of the team that are here and that are actually not here. Larry Milo, assistant coach. Lori Wolf. Kenda Henze. Kelly Arnold, Mona Sarda, Teresa Galler, well, just introducing you, Tammy Hubert, Jenny Hinton, Sheila Milbrett, Kathy Gardner, Kelly Miller, Tammy Sens, Julie Witt, Patty Preo, Beth Johnson, and Amy Milo. Thank you.
Thank you, Adair and Jean and the girls basketball team. While the girls basketball team is setting up for the pictures, we're now going to introduce our next team, which is the 1981-82 Janesville wrestling team. And here's Coach Mike Nimchik.
I'm not going to say anything. Otherwise, Dale Shook is our spokesperson for tonight. Otherwise, wrestlers and the stat people, if you would just line up over by the bar. Everybody knows where the bar is, I think. Okay, let's do it right now, and Dale's going to say a few words, followed by Matt Richardson right after that. So let's go. Oh, no. You're on.
I'm on? You are. I should make them line up right here. Sure glad I don't have to follow here. I know.
Get close to the mic. So I can hear you.
Okay. So this is going to go a little different direction. So when I was asked to do this, a few things come to mind. One was to describe the team. So first, and it's probably hard to picture now, but we were kind of a quiet, scrawny, wiry group, so we weren't that intimidating. And I'm pretty sure we weren't the most talented. How's that for a start? What this team probably did have more than most was every one of these guys was a scrapper, so there was never any quit in them, and they were in really good condition. And I still remember the first day of practice that year, the coaches were standing on the side of the mat, and Nimchek was looking around. And he turned to the other coaches and said, well, this is all we have to work with. Any ideas? And I think it was Von Holton that said, well, let's work the hell out of them. Maybe we can outlast everybody. So that's what they did. In the end, it was a winning formula. They ended up with a bunch of scrappy kids that didn't get tired. So we won a lot of matches we probably shouldn't have. We were close on a lot of matches we probably shouldn't have been close on. And when the whole team's doing that, you get results, and we did that year. So it also became a common event with this group to have somebody get beat up for 5 minutes and then come back and win in the end. It made things a little more exciting to watch. You always knew something was going to happen. You just didn't know by who or when. So that was the team. The second thing was the support we got from the community that year. Gyms were full. A lot of people put a lot of miles on following us that year. And when you're uptown, you get comments like, good job last weekend, go get them this weekend type thing. So I just remember that being a big deal. And then the third thing were on the coaches, and I'm pretty sure they'll be in the Hall of Fame for a number of reasons, but what came to mind for me was I was at Anissa's graduation last spring, and the coaches were all there with their wives. And they've been at a lot of the athletes' events through the years, and it just tells me the athletes had enough respect for the coaches to keep inviting them even after all these years, and the coaches had enough respect to keep showing up. So they kind of became part of the families, and I guess I don't know of a better compliment than that. So since I only can carry 3 thoughts, on behalf of the 82 wrestling team and all the people that supported it, thank you for the recognition.
That's the most I've heard him speak in 30 years. Matt Richardson Sr. wants to say a few words. Hustle up here. You got 12 seconds to get here.
12 seconds, huh? All right.
Speak into the mic. Well, I was just a little coach back then. These guys are all older than me. But the guy that just finished talking, step out there once, Dale. I want him to have a good look at you. We had to wrestle Mankato East. Of course, that was a big school. And poor Dale, I started to go out to drive the bus home, get it warmed up. It's cold. He was getting beat up pretty bad, weren't you, Dale? Kept taking you down. All of a sudden, the crowd just went nuts. Dale got tired of it and pinned the guy. He was going to state too, the other guy. That's the way that team was. I never give up. Joe Shook, step out. Mike tells me.
Do what they tell them to do.
Mike tells me that one of the coaches come out and told him. He says, "You wrestle that kid. You got to wrestle all 6 minutes, or he'll beat you." And that's the way the whole team was. But I want to just elaborate a little bit on the Waterville match. If you look in your programs, you'll see it. We won 27-22, if I remember right. I got a bad memory. But I don't know if any of you remember Buzz Cummins. Well, Buzz got a little excited because he was getting beat and he started jumping up and down, and all of a sudden his toupee flew off. And there's a young kid in here. Where are you at, Lautner? Is he still here? Darwin? When we had the match at Waterville that year, he stopped people from coming in because all the kids were right up next to the edge of the mat and the sides. Behind both teams, they were standing up. The doorway was full. And there was 1,400 and some people, and they wouldn't let anybody else in. We won the match. And these guys had heart when they went out and wrestled. They never quit, no matter what it was. Of course, some of them now, I tried to tell the girls behind the bar, don't serve them. These kids aren't old enough yet. That's it. Thank you. Got one. Rooster, step out here, Rooster.
We'll tell them later. Okay, Matt and Gary, would you come up here and hand out these plaques, please? I'm going to call them up, and we'll go. Once we get everybody up here, if you would please just take your plaque, walk across so everybody can see what you look like, and walk over to the stage on my left, and we'll get everybody's picture. Our 98-pounder that year was Mark Richardson. He weighs 103 right now, I think. Okay, sorry, the plaques are over there. Just shake their hand, or you can hug them, like the girls did too. Well, they'll fight over them. Anyway, just either give them a hug or shake their hands, one of the two. Joe Shook was a 105-pounder. Dennis Mulcahy, also a 105-pounder. We'll do this quick. Dan Cowden, who couldn't make it tonight, was a 112-pounder also. Mark Jewison, 119 pounds. Matt Richardson Jr., 126 pounds. Judy is going to be receiving his plaque for him. Ed Wheelock, who couldn't be here, he's duck hunting, deer hunting, I don't know, doing something with a gun. Tim Elke was a 132-pounder. Dennis Jewison was a 138-pounder. Bill Bornicke was a 145-pounder, and his daughters, Erin and Emily, will receive the plaque for him. Chet Wolf was a 150 or 45-pounder also. He's not here today. He was at a sister's son's wedding. Chris Shook, 155-pounder. Dale Shook, 167-pounder.
That was a long time ago.
Sam Jewison couldn't make it from Jackson, Wyoming. And Rich Eustace was our heavyweight. Our two statisticians were Julie Schultz and Deb Kapiski Vogelfree. Our cheer team who couldn't be here tonight, they were cheering somebody else on somewhere, I don't know, whatever it was Becky Johnson-Connell, Dawn Meyer-Tobin, Doreen Mulcahy-Elke, and Michelle Plume-Thompson. Ron Clampy was our manager at the time. Tragically, Ron was killed in a car accident. His sister is coming a little later on and picking up his trophy. And as you already know, Matt Richardson and Gary Von Holton were really the coaches. They let me think that I was the head coach, and I appreciated that. Thank you very much. Congratulations to everybody else that's here.
Before we get to our next athlete inductees, just a couple house cleaning items here. You will be introduced. You can speak. I will give you your plaque, and then you can go get your picture taken so we can have that forever and ever. So next up is our first athlete inductee. He is from Pemberton, Minnesota, Mr. Glenn Bjornson, and speaking for his behalf will be Dale Owen.
he asked me to speak on his behalf. Ryan, does that mean I get his minutes and my minutes? Okay. Anyway, thank you for the committee to have Glenn and I be nominated this year to the second annual Hall of Fame for JWP. And I would also like to congratulate all the other inductees that are being inducted here tonight. And then now I'd like to say, how did Pemberton ever become the success that they were? With a small town of 152 people, only 8 teams qualified at that time. There was only one class, and we only had 10 uniforms, so we only had 10 players. And it really started when we were sophomores, class of 55. And in fact, Glenn and I were 2 of the sophomores. We had 3 sophomores and a freshman starting as sophomores. So that was the nucleus of the team that ended up going to the state tournament in 1957. And the freshman was my younger brother, Dave. And so then we became juniors, and we lost 1 game our junior year, and that was to Janesville in a holiday basketball tournament in Pemberton. And Gene Volz, I believe, was the star at that time. And we lost 1 game during the regular season, that was to Janesville. And then we ended up getting beat by Mankato High School in the district finals in Mankato at the Mankato State Teachers College. So we ended up with 2 losses our junior year. And so now our senior year, after our success for our junior year, our coach, Harvey Johnson, who came when he was 23 years old, so that made him 25, and we went to the state. Anyway, he decided to schedule 4 non-conference large schools to get us ready for tournament time. So the first team we played non-conference was Olivia, Minnesota, and that was the preliminary to the University of Minnesota Gopher game. Back then, the University of Minnesota had high schools playing the preliminary to the Gopher games. And we ended up playing Olivia, and we beat them 73-62. And Glenn had 37 points in that game. And he was the main reason why we won that game. In fact, Glenn looked very young when we were in high school, and I called him the baby-faced assassin because he was cool on the court, and he was absolutely fearless. So I have nothing good to say about Glenn Bjornson because he was one heck of a basketball player. In fact, I tried to get him to go to college where I went to Mankato State. I wanted to be a teammate of mine at Mankato State, but he went into the Marines. So anyway, he was a heck of a basketball, and he was our MVP, I think, for our senior year. So our second non-conference game was against that would have been Richfield, the Suburban Conference. And they came to Pemberton to play us in the little town of Pemberton. In fact, the superintendent calls up our superintendent and said, what's the street address of the school in Pemberton? And well, there aren't any stoplights, and it's on the south end of town. And it's only 2.5 blocks long. So anyway, we beat them 50-69. And then we played Albert Lee in the Big 9 conference. And we were supposed to lose all 4 of these games, by the way. And we beat them 57-45 on their court. And they were a dirty team. They were, in fact, I remember they didn't like Glenn very well. He was doing so well in that game that one of their guards came down and punched him and gave right in the solar plexus, just like that. They run down the court for no apparent reason. So these are things you never forget, even though it was 61 years ago. And then the last non-conference game was New Prague. It was a year after Ron Johnson graduated. And of course, everybody remembers the name of Ron Johnson, All-American at the University of Minnesota. Anyway, we beat them on their court. So that was the 4 games that really set the tone for us going into the tournament. So we played St. James in the district finals in Mankato, and their center was 6'9", Joe Schultz, and we had posted one guy in front of him, one guy in back of him, so we kept him from the number of touches he would have during that game, and he ended up with 7 points and 6 rebounds. And that was one reason why we were able to beat St. James. So then we go to the region tournament in Gustavus, Adolphus, and we end up playing Walnut Grove. Excuse me, I'm sorry, that's the state tournament. We end up playing, now it'll come to me. Who was that now? My brain dead. Laverne, we beat Laverne, I'm sorry. Anyway, we beat them, and in fact, Glenn had 27 points in that game and had a tremendous game, and the reason we won that game. Blue Earth and Mountain Lake were the other two teams, and Mountain Lake beat Blue Earth, so we ended up playing Mountain Lake in the region finals at Gustavus, and we ended up beating them. I had a great game in that game. And no, I'm sorry, I got it reversed. I had the good game the first game, and Glenn had the good game the second game. And I had 30 points and 7 rebounds in the first game, and he had 27 in the second game. But anyway, we ended up going to the state tournament, and there's one person here tonight that said she's from Walnut Grove, and that's who beat us in the first game of the state tournament. And we were down 20 points in the first half, and they ended up beating us by 5. And then we played Rochester in the second game and lost by 1. So we really didn't disgrace ourselves by going to the state tournament. And so anyway, that's basically what happened with the big town of Pemberton, which is now a population of 247. It's grown from 152 to 247. So anyway, that's about it. Thank you.
Next up is our first contributor inductee, Gary Cummins, better affectionately known as Gary Boo Cummins.
Not very good at this, but so I promise to not make my oldest granddaughter cry. So I didn't have a speech teacher in high school like George Tuvey, so bear with me while I try to deliver this acceptance speech. I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee, my family, and especially my mentor, Mr. Bob Steinberg. I'm sure Bob wouldn't have seen this coming, as I didn't either. But anyway, I had Bob as a teacher, and I'm sure I enjoyed my time with him more than he did with me. But after 3 years in the military, and I came home and he was a track coach, and he invited me along to help him with the track meets. So I went along and I ran the field events, and the likes, I mean, it was some memorable times with Missile Arnold and Doug and Dwayne Barron and others, but we had a great time. And anyway, from there, he coaxed me into doing the clock for boys basketball. Well, that was no big deal, I don't think, but it grew into girls basketball, wrestling, volleyball, and 54 years later, here I am. but it was a good time, and I enjoyed watching my kids, my friends' kids, and my friends' grandkids playing all kinds of sports, and it was an enjoyable time. And it was always the best seat in the house. And I worked with Bill Burns for quite a few years, and he did the books and I did the clock. And I have, excuse me, I have some pretty good memories of some of that. And one of my special ones was Bill used to get a little excited when people didn't check in properly. And he'd say, "Check in here." And I thought it was kind of humorous, but he probably didn't. But anyway, it was fun, and we had a lot of good memories and good times. But if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. I would have especially enjoyed the moment with Bob Steinberg, but not to be. And maybe we could have gone in together, and I haven't gone away just yet, but the sun is setting. And I want to thank you all for coming. I want to congratulate all the other inductees, and continue to follow JWP Athletics. Go Dogs.
Yeah, he said he did it for both of them already. Thank you.
Next up, we have another athletic inductee, James Jim Johnson.
I'm gonna speak for Jim. He came to me last night and he says, "Hey, will you do me a favor and speak tonight for me?" And I said, "Geez, I don't want to do that." And he says, "Well, you better." And I says, "Well, I don't want to do it." And he says, "Well, let's wrestle for it." So we got in my living room. We got all the furniture apart. And of course, Jim, he took me down and we went right through the floor. All the way into the basement, and he pinned me down there. So here I'm going to speak for him. Jim's senior year, we got a new coach, Coach Howie Gangstead from Mankato State. And he was an excellent wrestler for Rummy Mages. And at the beginning of the season, after the regular practice, Jim would wrestle with Howie for about a half an hour every night. But during our regular practices, Jim always made it a point to find me. And so he'd come and he'd say, "Rob, where are you?" You know, and he says, "I'm sitting right here." So he'd come on and pound on me for, 10, 15 minutes, and he'd say, "Hey, you can run, but you can't hide." You know. So what I would do then, I would hurry up, get dressed, and I'd get up on the stage of the old gym, and I'd watch Coach Gangstead pound on him. And I never told you this, Jim, at the time, but it sure was fun watching you get pounded on. I never told you that because I knew you'd take it out of me in the next practice. At the beginning of tournament time, Coach Gangstead thought that Jim might have a better chance at 138 pounds. But Jim said, "Coach, don't worry, I'll win it at 45. So, in the district tournaments, well, first of all, I want to say Jim was a fearless wrestler. He wasn't scared of anyone. He didn't care where they're from, what their record was. He was going to go out and do his thing. Excuse me. Well, anyway, I swore I wasn't going to do this. Well, anyway, so in the district tournaments, he won the conference tournament, and then the district tournament, he breezed through into the finals, and he had to wrestle a guy named Alan Rhodes from Owatonna, from Big Nine Conference. So Alan Rhodes, a big anticipated match, and because they're both undefeated, and they're meeting in the finals. So I'm sitting in the bleachers, and there's two kids sitting in front of me, and about my age. And I overheard one say, hey, this Alan Rhodes is going to pound this guy from Janesville. Of course, you know, he's my brother, right? So I tapped these guys on the shoulder, and I said, hey, you guys want to bet on that? I said, yeah. How much? And I said, well, I only got 50 cents. So about a quarter a piece. And they said, yeah, you're on, you know. So Jim comes out there, and Alan Rhodes comes out there, and they shook hands, and the ref blew the whistle, and that match never got to the second period. Jim had this kid again. I mean, it was an awesome match. You remember that? Anyway. So now we're going into the regional tournaments. And Jim breezed through, and he got to the finals, and he had to wrestle, though, the defending state champ from Leroy Ostrander named Steve Rice. And it was a nail biter, 1-0. And Jim won that. I don't know why I won that. But anyway, he won that match 1-0. And then we got into the state finals, and that was up at St. Cloud, and my mother and I were on the second level. And Jim was, I'm sorry. But Jim was, took the kid down. It was a kid from St. Francis. Jim took the kid down, and I turned to Mom to say something, and she got all excited, so I turned around. Here Jim was on his back. So I ran down, and by the time I got down to Matt's side, Jim was back on top. So now it's 5-4, and down on the Matt's side was my dad. My Uncle Roger had 2 wrestlers from Atwater in the state tournament. My brother Dick, and then another inductee, Booger Cummins. So it's fitting you two are in here tonight. But anyway, so Jim won that match 8-5, and then his quarterfinal match he won 14-2. Then he won 19-1, and then the state finals he had a rematch with the state, the regional finals, Steve Rice, and Jim beat him 5-2. So Jim, on behalf of Mom and Dad, the family, and everyone that was
You're fired.
I was fortunate enough to watch you wrestle. Thanks for memory, buddy.
Next, we have another athlete, inductee, Larry Kruger.
Thank you. I want to congratulate the other inductees tonight. I want to thank Mike Nimchuk for nominating me, and I want to thank the Hall of Fame Committee for this great honor. My sports career got off to kind of a rocky start. It was 7th grade football. It was the first practice, and we were in the locker room getting ready, and the coaches had left all the equipment there, and we figured out the shoulder pads okay, most of the other pads, but the hip pads created a problem. Hip pads are what you put around your waist, and you've got a pad in the back for your tailbone. And half of us weren't sure where that. So about half of us had it in the front. And it wasn't until we waddled down to practice field, couldn't hardly walk, much less run, that we figured out we probably had it on. Fortunately, my career got a lot better after that. I had some really great coaches, starting with Little League. I had Jim Tetzloff, who was a great coach and a great role model. High school, I had Gene Webush. He's one of those rare people that can coach any sport. And I'm guessing that if Janesville would have had hockey back then, he could have coached that as well. So I was really lucky to have Gene as my coach in several sports in school. Dave Tonoli, I was very fortunate. Basketball is my favorite sport. And he was a great coach, and is also in the Minnesota Coaches Hall of Fame. So I was very fortunate to have him. Larry Milo was a great teacher as well as a coach, and very fortunate to have him as well. Gary Von Holton and George Tooby were great coaches. They were very positive and supportive and made playing a lot more fun. These coaches had a positive impact not only in sports but in my life in general, and I want to thank them for that. Almost all my coaches, even my college basketball coach, is in the Hall of Fame. And when you think about that, I probably should have done a lot better. I was very fortunate. My sports career lasted nearly 30 years. I had back surgery at 21, which ended my college career, but I was able to play 15 more years of competitive softball and basketball, which I was very fortunate to do. I had great coaches, played on many successful teams, had great teammates. I estimate I played with about 40 of the best players and athletes Janesville ever had during all those years, so I was very lucky. I had a great experience, many memories, and a lot of fun. And I want to thank my family who are here tonight. And I want to say hi to a special person, my grandson Cooper. Hi, Cooper. Thank you.
Next, it's hard to say this name without me laughing a little bit. But next we have our AD and coach inductee, Mr. Larry Milo.
Don't you wish? Again, I just like all the rest. Can you hear me back there? No. Of course, I got a mic. Hey, listen, you'll be fortunate that you can't hear me back there. I would like to also say thank you to the Hall of Fame. And I was looking through the criteria of this, and I don't know how I qualify for any of this, but thank you very much. And again, congratulations to the rest of the inductees. I just want to mention a few items that are important to me. I want to give thanks to Mr. Lautner. He gave me my first opportunity to coach and become the athletic director at Janesville and JWP. I believe I was the first coach and teacher that he hired, and I overheard him telling somebody he thought it was a mistake. But anyway, I stayed for 34 years, so I outlasted him. The first sport that I got an opportunity to coach was baseball. Of course, it's my favorite career and my favorite sport. That began in 1967, and it lasted 10 years. I was fortunate to have some great ball players. Of course, one of them was just up here. Larry Kruger was a pitcher on our team. And the conference usually came down to either Waterville winning, or Richland winning, or Janesville winning. And we had our share of wins. During this time, my greatest memory probably was in 1973, if you can remember. Some of you weren't born then, I know, but in 73 we were playing for the district and the region title. And we, at that time, again, as somebody mentioned, there were no classes, and you just had one class, so you had to play with the big boys also. And in the sub-district, we ended up playing Morristown. Then we played Medford. And then we moved into the district, and we ended up playing against Waseca. My competitor, Tink Larson, who was here tonight. And we actually won that. He'll probably dispute that. He thinks he won, but we won that game. And then, of course, we ended up going against Owatonna. Now, Owatonna was scheduled to be the state champions that year. And here comes little Janesville, came against them. And we had a great pitching performance by a kid named Stuart Johnson. In fact, Stuart lives in Florida, and he called me this morning. It was quite an honor to talk to him. But we ended up beating Owatonna 3-1 that game. And I think it was one of the biggest upsets that probably I know that I was ever involved with. Then, of course, we had to go against Faribault, who was, again, projected to go to the state. And unfortunately, we lost that one to 7-5, so we did not get the opportunity to make it to the state. But I was still proud of that squad and enjoyed every minute of that in baseball. Carried on then in 1969, I started to coach junior high boys basketball. I did that for 12 years. At that age, I did not keep a lot of records, so I can't tell you our win or loss. I was more interested in teaching fundamentals, and if we won, that was great, but I wanted the kids to learn and enjoy playing basketball. Then Coach Webush came and said, I need some help in junior high football. I didn't know anything about football, and now I know why. He needed somebody to carry the dummies, and I think sometimes I was the dummy. Thanks a lot. Then when the pairings came with Waldorf-Pemberton in 1989, I had the opportunity to coach 9th grade boys basketball and be assistant to the varsity. We had some great seasons, and again, we went undefeated a number of years. But I will point out one thing. I was not a big person about platooning teams in, but at that one year, I had to do that because I had 24 9th graders on the team. And I wanted to get everybody into the game, and so I kind of gave them all names so that if I'd say, Jared, team, go on in, well, all the kids on that team's name was Jared. It was pretty easy to do. But again, we had some great ball teams, and I enjoyed every minute of that. Then came my downfall. Coach Webush came and convinced me to become a girls basketball coach. Well, I had to think about that quite a bit because knowing that I had 4 girls at home already, and now do I want to put up with another hour and a half of girls in practice? I wasn't sure about that. But it was a great time for me. I enjoyed every minute of it. And I remember our first ball game that we had, we were playing Albert Lee. We lost. And we went down to the locker room, and I was just having a discussion with the team. And I was still having that discussion when the varsity came down at halftime. And I think most of the girls were crying at that time. And I'm thinking, maybe I got to change my techniques as far as coaching girls basketball. That was the last game we lost that year. And then the opportunity to be an assistant on the varsity coach as a coach was great. Just one incident that I will refer to is we were playing Owatonna. And it was a close ball game. It was really a tight game. And I really wasn't agreeing with the officiating that was going on. I always did otherwise. I didn't ever yell or anything. And in fact, I always got the inferior clipboards, and if I dropped them on the floor, they would break. And I don't know why that happened, but anyway, we were playing Owatonna. Way at the end of the game, I got up and I was going to go out on the floor and help the refs, and just like that, somebody grabbed me by my belt and pulled me back on the bench, and I looked, and here it's Coach Webush. He goes, "We don't need a technical now." I never saw him move that fast. And actually, after every game, I almost had to go home and put ice on my knee, because if you know Gene, if he wanted to get up off the bench, he always had to use my knee to get up to get up and yell. Is that right?
I still do.
Finally, I had the opportunity in 1985 to become the athletic director at Janesville Bears, and then later on with the Bulldogs. I had the honor to work with a number of great players, coaches, parents, and fans. And then the next part that was really great was I had the opportunity to go to an awful lot of state tournaments, whether it was football, whether it was basketball, whether it was girls basketball, boys basketball, wrestling, and I got to be part of it. And they'd always take me along. Of course, I had the money, so they had to take me along. Also, to be involved with the conferences and the sections and getting to know a lot of people. And I will share one last thing about being an AD. It was my first AD job as being a supervisor at a volleyball game. And if anybody remembers, usually one supervisor was at one door going in the gym and one at the other door. Well, Mr. Lautner was at one door on the east and I was at the other door on the west side. And for some reason, and I don't know why, in a volleyball game, there was a fan up in the stands that was yelling at our scores table. My first time, I thought, oh, maybe I better do something about it. So I went up in the stands and I said, sir, you're just going to have to enjoy the match and please quit yelling at our table. He goes, okay, yep. It wasn't long, he was back at it again. So I thought, well, I better go up and do it again. So I went up and said, sir, you're going to have to come out of the gym with me. He didn't argue, came out. He said, can I stand in the doorway with you? And I go, sure. I'm looking down at the other way, and here's Mr. Lautner laughing. And I thought, what the heck? I went down there, he goes, do you know who you threw out? That was the superintendent from New Richland. So during this time also, I just finally want to thank my family, my 4 daughters, and of course my wife. They were all very supportive. I was gone a lot of times for games and athletics, but it was an experience that I'll never give up. Thank you very much.
He has already been up to speak, but one more time I would like to recognize Dale Owen, if Dale could stand up. He is our athlete inductee from Pemberton, so congratulations, Dale. Next, we have another coach inductee, Patricia Smith.
What a pleasure and an honor to be here with you tonight, to have the opportunity to stand before you as an inductee into the 2018 JWP Hall of Fame. I never envisioned anything like this in my life. I never envisioned staying in one town as long as I did, 30 plus years. When I first took the job, I was in the athletic, or what was it called, Darwin? We were sitting in the student union at MSU, and I believe John Graff and Darwin Lautner were in a booth, and they were talking about where are we going to find a Phi Ed teacher? This is the end of August. And I had just finished working on my master's, and I had taught for 1 year in Bloomington, and I had thought I'll go back to the Twin Cities where I'm from. And they said, we're looking for, they were looking for a teacher and a coach. And I overheard them, and I turned around and I said, so you're looking for somebody? And I think it was John Graff who said, yes, we need a teacher and a coach. And I said, where? And he said, Janesville. I said, where the hell is Janesville? And he said, well, it's just down the road. And why don't you come down and take a look? Well, I did. I ended up in John Graff's house, wrestling on the floor with Steve and Greg. They were little at the time. And I had 3 younger brothers, so I enjoyed that. And they made me feel very welcome. And I don't regret 1 second of spending 30 plus years in this town, the greatest people that I've ever met. I want to thank the Hall of Fame Committee. It's an honor and a privilege, as I said, to be with such an outstanding group of inductees. And when I look at the girls, of course, that's some of the best memories I've ever had. And we're not going to go into all of the reasons why, because I probably would be fired if I repeated some of the things I said to them back in 1982. Would get you into trouble this day and age. There are 4 people I would really like to thank. Don Schultz, Charlie Johnson, Dave Burgess. They were my assistant coaches, and they put up with a lot. And I don't believe any of them are here tonight, but I would be remiss if I didn't give them some kudos. The 4th person is here tonight, and she kind of lights up my life back then and now, and that's Bethy Johnson. And Bethy, don't you dare start crying, because I'll start crying. She was the best manager that I think anybody could ever hope for. And she was a little mother to everybody, including me, I think. And she still is. So Bethy, thank you very much, dear. I love you. 46 years ago, a law was enacted, and that prohibited discrimination against girls and women in any federally funded education program, which at the time included athletics. And that was called Title IX. It had kind of a dirty connotation for a while because it took things away from the boys' program and the men at college and so on. So there was a long road to travel to get equality for girls. But thankfully, we had some really great people here. Bob Steinberg was the he was the athletic director at the time. Darwin was superintendent. And so I had to go to them for whatever we needed. And at the time, we had a basketball team, we had a softball team, we had a track team, and we played a very limited number of games. If you can remember, GAA was still here, so the girls always got the gym on Friday because the boys had football and they didn't practice, and the basketball was in the winter, so in the fall we always could have the gym. But in wintertime, of course, we had a problem. And when Title IX came in, it demanded equality. So practice time became an issue. And about 1972, I think, was the very first state tournament for girls in sports, and that was a track state tournament. We did not participate in that state tournament, but Bob did his best to get us limited number of games in track, softball, basketball. And we did not have uniforms. We were equal, Title IX said equal, boys had uniforms. We didn't have uniforms yet, but we weren't going to be too greedy at first. We had to work our way into it. So we played a limited number of games, probably 3 home, 3 away, and we wore pennies. And some of the older girls here, Deanne's laughing and Marla's laughing. Yeah, they're Susan the Johnsons, some of the older Johnsons are laughing. They can remember the pennies. When we finally got uniforms, I don't know if they'll remember, I know, because they wore them for 3 different sports. We wore the same uniform for volleyball, basketball, and track. And I think maybe for a while we had to wear them in softball too, but then Burgess came along and he was able to get some uniforms. And so they were different than the other ones. But we didn't have warm-ups. We were pretty bare bones, but God, did we have fun. I can only remember the good times. And even the bus rides with a Dorito breath breathing down my neck, and finally had to make a rule, no Doritos on the bus, unless you sit in the back, because it just kind of wafted to the front. But I can remember all those good times and the fun we had, and it's so great to see as many of you here tonight, I'm sorry I didn't recognize all of your faces, but I did ask some of you, give me your first initial of your first name, and I usually could get it right. And it's just great to see you all. We finally got our act together after 46 years of Title IX, and now girls have sports, state tournaments in everything. And I'm very, very proud to be able to say that we can read in the paper about the role models for girls and women without having to read about a college that is being investigated for grades or illegal recruiting, because that doesn't happen with girls and women. And thank God for that. You've done it right. We've all done it right. Parents should be proud, and go Bulldogs. Thank you.
We have another coach inductee, Mr. David Tonoli.
Just in case you're probably wondering what I've been doing since I retired in 2002, well, my first job was working in an orange juice factory, but I got canned. Couldn't concentrate. Then I tried working in a muffler factory, but it was too exhausting. My next job was working at a Starbucks store, but I had to quit. It was the same old grind. Finally, after years of trying to find steady work, I got a job as a historian. But I had to give that up too. There was no future in it. Thank you for this award. I am so grateful. Thank you to the hundreds of athletes and students that I worked with over the years. It was an honor and a privilege to teach and coach you all. We enjoyed lots and lots of successes and victories, and we worked hard to learn from our losses and to overcome them. Hats off to, I'm just going to mention 3 co-workers, George Tuvey, Larry Milo, and Darwin Lautner. And thank you to the committee for nominating me and getting me into this, including me in this group. And a big thank you to my #1 cheerleader, my wife, Kathy. Finally, I'm grateful to God for all of my good fortune. I really appreciate this. At this point, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip my main speech. It's the part that I wrote. I'm just going to go to the conclusion. I coached for 32 years, and there are so many games, so many players, managers, cheerleaders, that maybe I'll write a book. I haven't started it yet. But I do want to point out one other group, and that's the parents. The parents of athletes and students. Thank you for encouraging your kids to participate. Thank you for allowing them to play. And thank you for your support. My own parents were retired when I was coaching, and they went to Florida for a while. But when we qualified, JWP qualified for the state tournament in 1996, they returned early just to attend the state boys basketball tournament. What loyalty and what great fans parents are. So it's my hope that all Bulldogs will continue to work hard and to do your best and to enjoy competing. And don't forget to have fun. I got one more short story. It's really short. It's about the two silkworms who had a race. It ended in a tie. Thank you again. I appreciate this very much.
Next, we have another coach inductee, Mr. George Tuvey.
Well, I had a whole page of jokes here, but Tonoli got them all, so we'll skip that. Thanks to the committee for choosing me for this honor. I really appreciate it. There are so many people I want to thank for this. The administration and the school board for hiring me and letting me coach. I want to thank the various track coaches that I worked with, boys and girls coaches, volunteer coaches, and paid coaches as well. I want to thank the 3 head basketball coaches that I worked for. They allowed me to have my own team and to do things without having to do them a certain way. There were many football coaches who helped me for 9 years as a junior high coach, and then 24 years as a varsity coach. And I have to especially mention 2. If you want to see how good of coaches they were, we have a picture over here that shows the 3 of us working together. Coaches Nimchek and Von Holton. They, at games especially, they had an idea for me. They would kind of come up quietly and give me some advice. When I listened to them, they smiled. When I didn't listen, they would say, see, that's what happens if you don't listen to us. I want to thank my kids, John and Sarah. They allowed me to neglect them an awful lot during the seasons. I was fortunate enough to coach my son in 3 sports. And most of the time, it came out very positive. He can tell you about the times when it wasn't positive. I tried coaching my daughter in 1 sport, and then she moved over to cheerleading, and I didn't even want to try any of that. So. I want to thank the kids who were on my speech team. They ended up with the short end of the stick, really. The speech season started toward the end of basketball and then finished up at the beginning of track, and I really neglected them. They really did a great job, though. And finally, I want to thank my wife. A coach's wife is not an easy job at any time. Now, Joanne made several trips during the track season all around southern Minnesota, out to Pipestone a couple of times. She was, anytime we had a home track meet, she was official scorekeeper and did a great lot for us when I was coaching track. She was unofficial scorekeeper at basketball games. Although Bill Burns once in a while would say, would you check with Joanne and see whether this guy's got... we figured that she was in the stands for about 1,200 varsity and B squad basketball games. Toward the end of the season, she had to do it without popcorn because she gave up popcorn for Lent. During football season, rain, snow, heat, mosquitoes, wind, she was there. You could hear her. Not only could you hear Joanne, you could also hear Noreen Nimchek. They come through on the game tapes so clearly. Go for it! Or stop him! Yep, Joanne planned the pizza parties that we had in our garage after the first home game. She went out and talked to the police when our neighbor called and said we were making too much noise. She planned and called parents, telling them it was their turn to do milk and sandwiches that we provided for both teams after our home games. So there were a lot of things that a coach's wife did that nobody ever knows about. Now, my coaching philosophy started in high school. I wanted to be a coach probably about the time I was a ninth grader. I had 3 different track coaches, one of which was an actual track coach. He went on and coached in St. Cloud. The other 2 had the philosophy of run fast, jump long or high, and throw far. That was it. So I learned a little bit from that. I had 2 different basketball coaches in high school. One of them said, get the ball, get it down the floor, shoot. The other one said, play defense, slow things down. So I had a lot of different philosophies there. In football, I played varsity for 5 years. I had 4 different coaches. The first one believed in the single wing, Bernie Bierman kind of football. The second one was the track coach. And he said, oh, run, 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 run. I didn't like that. My junior year, we had a guy that had just graduated from the University of Minnesota, and he had Murray Warmus split team. Okay, that was new. My senior year, we had a guy that came off the Iron Range, believed in defense and power football. And he probably taught me more than any other coach that I had. It worked because our senior year, we lost the first game 13-6. And then after that, the 7 other games we played, 8 other games we played, we won and we had double digits and we allowed 1 touchdown all season. So my philosophy is based on a lot of different things. I figured out that I coached athletics at JWP, Janesville, for 76 seasons, counting track, basketball, and football. In track, probably the highlight was 1982. We won the conference championship and then went on and won the district championship. We won it at Blooming Prairie on their track, beating the team that had won the conference for years and years. I got to go along to the state tournament in track with a couple of kids. In basketball, I was an assistant coach. I got to go along to the varsity when it was in the state tournament. But the thing that I remember most is that we were the B squad. We weren't the JV, we were sophomores and some freshmen. And we got to play, well, the Gopher Conference kept statistics on varsity and B squads. And over the time that I coached, we won 10 conference championships. And we had one streak. We didn't have playoffs at the end of the year, so we could end on a win. And we had one streak where we won 39 consecutive games. So that was really an outstanding feature. In football, we won the Gopher Conference. We were in the state tournament. We won the section. Because of the great players we had, I got to coach in the All-Star game. I got elected as president of the State Coaches Association. But there was one week that I remember as the highlight. That was in 1994. We had an average team, 4-4 at the end of the season. We got seeded 6th, which meant we were going to be on the road for the playoffs. First game, we played the number 3 seed, was at New Richland. We went down there and we beat them. Oh, that's wonderful. That was on a Tuesday night game. We had 3 days to prepare for the next game, and we played number 2. Just happened to be Waterville, who was the conference champ, who was 9-0, and we went up there, had a little luck, played well, we won that game. 2 conference champions we beat in the same week in 5-day period, and it was outstanding. 2 greatest rivals that we had in football. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to congratulate all the inductees, and I want to thank the parents for trusting me with your kids, and I want to thank the athletes for allowing me to be a part of your lives. Thank you.
Last, but certainly not least, a gentleman who continually helps me out today, another coach inductee, Mr. Gary Von Holton.
Name check. Do we get a ring on this? All right. I see all these other guys coming up here with sheets of paper. Short but sweet. Short but sweet. Okay, I want to thank the committee for inducting me in this Hall of Fame. I thought it'd be last year, but you know. Whatever. Thanks, Nimchek. No, to be very honest with you, of all the Hall of Fames I've been inducted into, this is the best one. Fake news. This is the only one. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it. In sports and that, they say you're either good or you're lucky. I was lucky. I've been lucky for 34 years. I was lucky that I played in high school, and we had some success in high school. We played 8-man football, which is kind of unusual, but it was fun. We won 3 conference championships when I was a player. Got to play a year in 1 game in junior college. What are these other guys in the field doing out here? It's 11-man football. You know, something's wrong here, but it worked all right, so it was fun. So I was lucky there. I was lucky to go to college and graduate, and I applied for a job with Mr. Lautner, and I always call him Mr. Lautner because someday I might want to get a job and I need a reference, so he's a good reference for that. So it's still Mr. Lautner yet, but he gave me a job and a wrestling coach. I never wrestled in high school. What am I going to do here? But a guy by the name of Jim Rieselman came the same year. So we started the program, and we had quite a bit of success. I remember a tournament we went to in St. Paul Park, I think we took 3rd place. The trophy had to be this big. We had to take some levels off so we could get in our showcase. So I was lucky to be under and work with great coaches. Jim Rieselman, naturally, Gene Weebush. When we worked with Jim, or Gene though, it was his way. We never had too much to say. He ran everything. But it was good, Gene. I enjoyed it. So we did that, and then with Coach Tuvey, and Coach Tuvey was pretty neat. Nimchek and I, we coached in the 9th grade and the B squad teams, and we'd have the junk plays. I mean, they were junk. There's no doubt about it. We did some really weird stuff, and we never see it much today, but I don't know. I still have my playbook, Mr. Wagner. But anyway, we had fun. We never counted the guys on the field. We counted the 3 guys standing next to us, So we were good that way. So we had a great time. And then Mike Mutiking, bone right, bone left, bone right, bone left. If you played under him, you know what I meant there. So it's fun being an assistant coach because we can agree with the parents. He sure did a crappy job tonight, didn't he? Sure did. There's no doubt about that. I was very lucky to have a bus driver by the name of Bob Preel, too. And many of you know Bob. Yes. Bob was, he took us all over, and he'd even let us drive the equipment bus once in a while. And one night, we were driving, Mike and I always got to ride in that, and with all the equipment and that, and so we got to put the little equipment bus back in the bus barn. So Nimchak, he opens up the door, and I drive in, and all of a sudden, bing, 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 bing. We took all the top lights off of that bus. Last time I let him open up that door. Coming back from a state tournament one year, we stopped at McDonald's. Well, the coaches and the bus drivers always get to eat free at McDonald's, so that's cool. So Mike and I think Matt Richardson, I don't know, Bruce Matthew or Tim Elke, we went up first and got our order, and we said to the lady handing out the food, and there's a guy back there. He follows us wherever we go. He's going to say he's the bus driver, and he's going to want a free meal. We don't even know who he is. So we're standing back there, and Bob gets up there, and she says, well, you're not the bus driver. Those guys over there said that you just follow along. You SOBs is all we could hear. That's all we could hear him say on that. So we're very lucky to have Bob in that. It was great. It was a lot of fun, and we really appreciated having him around and stuff and that. So I was really lucky to be associated with athletes in school. We're all lucky about that, because if it wasn't for the athletes in the high schools and stuff today, none of us would be up here. It takes those kids to want to participate and put up with us. For that wrestling team, I want to apologize to you. Nobody had to do 50 bleachers lap after every practice up and down those bleachers and stuff and that. It was inhumane. And Tuvi's bear builders, I got tired watching them. So it was kind of tough there. So, we appreciate that. And it was great that I was able to do that and be participant with it and let them be a part of my life. And it's like a big family. There's no doubt about it. I'm also very lucky that a lady from Bigelow, Minnesota, that's just next to the Iowa border, if nobody knows where that's at, agreed to marry me after going together 7 years, and we've been married for 47. And that's really lucky there. We just got back from a trip to Germany on one of those Viking riverboat cruises. We even made it back home again together, so it was close in that, but it was fun. So very lucky to have 3 daughters, Nicole and her husband Ben. He's from Iowa, but don't hold that against him. Katie lives with us right now, and she works for MediaCon. Or Courtney lives with us right now. I knew it was one of you. And she works for MediaCom, and if you call MediaCom, just swear, because everybody else does when they call her at customer services. And my daughter Katie teaches up in Belle Plaine, and her husband's Derek. He's from Le Sueur. And he's okay, but he didn't wrestle. So he's all right. And then my grandchildren, Eli, Sophie, and my oldest granddaughter, Nicole, they are at her semifinal match up in the cities right now. She plays soccer for White Bear Lake, so they had to leave and go to that tonight. So very lucky there. So you're lucky. We're all lucky and stuff. One other kind of unique situation, we wrestled Adrian, that's where I graduated from, in one of the tournaments down in Slayton. And we were ready to go out on the mat, and our kids Adrian was out there, and Adrian is a different group of people. They were different, there's no doubt about it. Anybody that takes a shower with cold water and stuff before they wrestle, definitely different. And I was glad I got out of town when I did. But anyway, didn't have wrestling back then. But they came out on the mat, and then all of a sudden these Eustis people, a different bunch of guys there and gals and parents and that, they made T-shirts, Dragon Busters, right across the front of the T-shirts. So they came out when we were going to wrestle later, and here they come out with those Dragon Buster T-shirts. If anybody has one of those, I'd like to get one, because I think they're going to be worth money yet someday. But it worked, we beat them, and it was all good and stuff and that. So anyway, it's been a great experience. I enjoyed it all. Very happy. There was one quote, though. You always got to end on a quote. Being on the last one, someplace here I have it. Do you have your glasses? No, I don't. I have it in Braille. When we were over in Germany, an old German gave me this quote. Let us not cry because this is past and over. Let us smile because it happened. And again, I'm smiling all the time because it's been great. Thank you.
before we close tonight, I want to say we are always looking for names for the Hall of Fame committee. You can pick up nomination forms on the table on your way out. It will be online here in the next week, so you can fill out the nomination form online. And it's a yearly process that we will go through the names and select the names. Again, a huge thanks to the community members that meet and decide and make a lot of plans to make this happen. So thank you very much for the committee members. Thank you. Another big thanks to our sponsors and for all of your donations to make this happen. Again, without our sponsors and without donations from many of you, this would not be possible. So thank you very much. If you want to pass this along to any of your friends and family, it is online. This is what our camera is set up for. So you'll be able to find it, I believe, on our website, WMP website, and Facebook page. So you can check that out and pass it along if you want to relive and see any speech again. And in closing, I just want to say, and I think I closed it up this way last year, but it always amazes me how many of the same people and the same athletes and the same coaches that always come up in stories, and I always love hearing our inductees' speeches because of how many of the same names that you hear. And it's awesome to be a part of education where teachers and coaches have such a big impact on individuals. And for those that are still in school, I know you might not like them all the time, but I promise you that they do have your best interest in mind. So thank you all very much for coming out and supporting our inductees. Congratulations to the class of 2018. Thank you very much. We're going to introduce the committee. Oh, let's end with the inductees from last year. If you were here from last year, go ahead and stand up. I'm going to start with Dave Arnold because I saw him. Dave, why don't you go stand up and wave your hand. He's class of 2017. Kate Gutchuk could not join us tonight. Next is Darwin Lautner over in the corner. Darwin, do you want to throw your hand up? Mike Nimchek, who you heard him talk. Gene Weebush, who is returning. Heather Johnson Anderson, who could not be here with us tonight. Jack Eustace, who I believe I saw here. Mona Fellows, who is a part of the girls basketball team. And Don Fogel, and our two gentlemen that represented the Pemberton men's basketball team, the 56 and 57 basketball team from Pemberton. We had, before that, Jim Tetzloff and Dale Owen from our Pemberton basketball team. Thank you all very much. James, hold on a sec. Jim.
And get out and vote.